Brave warriors! I have won great renown through leading men to victory. I see no reason to change the habits of a lifetime today. So be not backwards in your attacks. Carry the fight to the enemy. Give him not a moment's rest. Scream your defiance in his face.
Good morning, everybody. All right, let's do a little bit of an audio check here, and then we can get this underway. We're going to be playing a 1v1 Flash tournament today. I will, of course, be hosting, and I'll give you guys a little bit of an indicator of the rules for this matchup before we get started. So, each player has recourse to ban 2 factions and 2 maps out of our map pool. The factions that have been banned for today, I believe, are Doriath, Fingolfin, Valinor, and I think Toll and Gowraha. It's going to be Feanor versus Gondolin. It's a little bit of a grudge match here between 2 of the rival Lord houses. Each player is going to be getting 15k. Normally we play with 14.5. This gives them a little bit of extra wiggle room to deal with some of the randomness that we throw at them. So the map we randomized today is, I believe, is our map today. Nantathrin. Nice little flat map, perfectly suited for free-for-all, so no one should have any issues with oops, I'm stealing his faction. So nobody should have any issues with deployment with the 3 people in here. Let's just make sure that my audio is doing okay. Is it too loud? Are you guys able to hear me okay? Seems a bit low compared to the music. Alright, we'll fix that. There we go. How's that? A little bit better? I'm gonna go with yes. Okay. Might as well kit myself out as much as I'm able. I'll go ahead and get started. This will be an interesting matchup. I don't know how much Catragon has played. I know that they're both very experienced players when it comes to Medieval 2. So I'm expecting some pretty good things from this matchup. While we're waiting, I will go over some of the rules. They're fairly simple. We have some no camping rules, so armies can only remain stationary for, I believe, about 3 or so minutes. I do have a little stopwatch here, so I will be keeping an eye on that. And that's just to prevent camping and things like that. But it also does give a little bit of wiggle room if people want to use artillery. So you can very easily dump your artillery or reposition it within that 3-minute window. So that's more than enough time to get that done. I believe players are not able to take more than 1 Pyre Wolf, for example, with the Toll and Gowraha faction, even though they're technically capped at 2. No more. I think we've capped things at only 1 2 HP bodyguards, so you can't double down on them. That's really only an issue for some of the stronger factions like Fingolfin. That does kind of limit them a little bit. Doriath as well. But for the most part, aside from the expanded budget, it is pretty well business as usual. Armies of the same faction. Must be on the same team. Oh, I see what they're doing. What other rules do we have to speak of? I think that's pretty well it. In the event that we do have like camping and boxing and that kind of stuff, although I don't really have any rules that specifically cover boxing, but it is kind of subsumed into the camping rule. We will give players warnings. I don't think we're going to have any issues. These are both players that kind of know what they're doing and like to play aggressively. And neither of them are exactly a ranged powerhouse in any case. So I think we're going to see a lot of vicious melee combat here. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out, to be perfectly honest. Gondolin has a lot of anti-armor capabilities, and Feanor relies pretty heavily on their armor. So those, the Guildsmen of the Hammer of Wrath, or whatever they are, with their Warhammers are going to be a pretty serious problem for them. One of the other things that Feanor can struggle to deal with is, of course, heavy armor. They don't exactly have, outside of the Javelin units, they don't really have any means of dealing with armor directly. Cav charges from the rear can be nice, but I don't think either of these players are really going to let that happen very easily. So this one, once it really comes down to a melee grind, I think the Gondolin's going to have the advantage. But obviously, when in terms of mobility, Feanor is going to be running circles around them. Gondolin's roster is pretty limited in terms of the cavalry that they can bring with them. They do have a decent amount of anti-cav. They have some strong spear units, a couple of them. But yeah, the mobility edge there definitely goes to Feanor. So Finrod is probably going to want to get in to CQB as quickly as possible. And the rules are definitely tuned around that, so we'll see how Catragon can use his cavalry and try and come out on top here, because that's definitely a scary melee grinder for the Feanor faction that's going to be coming down their way. Finrod versus Catragon. Yeah, you got it. Alright, looks like Finrod's ready to go. Just waiting on Catragon. Valinor has many 2 HP units. Will the rule affect their Tyrion Valimar units, or it's just bodyguards? It's just the bodyguards. So, for example, if Valinor was making an army with the Kinsmen of Ingwe and the what is it? I can't remember what they are. It's the Maiar unit that's also multiple HP. They would have to pick one or the other. But the regular kind of rank and file units, they're not, classed as bodyguards. They get different like bonuses and whatever in my stat book. So it's fine to bring as many of those as they're able to afford and fit into a strategy. So it doesn't really hamper Valinor. That being said, I think in all of the matches so far that I have picks and bans for, Valinor has been banned in every single one of them. So whether or not that even becomes an issue, we'll see moving into to the next few rounds. I think a lot of people are going to be banning some of the stronger factions like Valinor and Fingolfin, so we probably won't see them too much. Oh, there we go. All right, park myself at the very back of the map, away from everybody. And we'll get started. So we'll take a look at the map here. I'll discuss some of the interesting terrain features that each player is going to have access to. Some of these little forested areas are quite nice. There are some areas to outright hide in there. Those are the darker areas, but there also is a lot of scrub and things like that. So if they were picking a fight with heavier infantry or with pole arms and cavalry. Cavalry are going to take some pretty nasty penalties in these little wooded areas here. So that might be something that's worth it for Valinor to try and pull Feanor into. But again, with our rules, it does make it a little bit more difficult for that to be a thing. Over here, looks like the Gondolindrim also have access to a similar little wooded copse. But I think most likely we're going to be seeing the battle take place out here on an open plain, which is definitely going to be in Feanor's interest. We'll see. Maybe we see Gondolin kind of come into here. Using some of these towers to try and secure their flank is definitely an option. But it does, of course, bring them quite close to the Feanor line, so it might be difficult for them to get in here. So I think this is just going to end up being played out on the flat plains, which is definitely going to give a little bit of an advantage over there to Feanor. Now, some of these very green areas, there is actually units that can hide in long grass in the mod. So you could see some ambushes here from some of the lighter units on the Gondolin side for sure. I think the House of the Tree have the ability to hide in long grass. I could be mistaken on that. And some of the Feanor units, like the Stalkers and things like that, definitely have that ability. So you could see some sneaky shenanigans out here on the field. But for the time being, let's pop ourselves up here in the radio tower. Get a good view of what both players are going to be about here today in terms of the maneuvering. But yeah, I'll be interested to see what Gondolin does to try and compete with Feanor in the mobility side of things. Whether or not they even go that direction, they just want to double down into what they're good at and go full infantry will be interesting. My personal feelings if I was in the Gondolin players' shoes is I would definitely be a little bit nervous. I don't like to fight Feanor because their cavalry is so good. Especially that mounted cavalry, those harassment jabs with all that heavy armor and those high shield values as well. They're extremely difficult to break down with anything short of other melee cavalry, entangling them with spears and just managing to completely surround them, that kind of thing. They can be pretty fearsome and very, very efficient for their cost. So that would be something that I would be worried about. The Lancers as well, they can really swing a game. Like one or two good charges from those Lancers at the right time, it can absolutely flatten infantry and expensive infantry units as well. I'd be looking to get some opportunistic charges against the Hammerers of the House of Wrath. Obviously, you don't want to take that charge on the chin from them because they will probably kill about half of the unit in return. But in terms of that exchange, it might even be worth it, just because of how much of a threat those Hammerers are. But yeah, if I was in the Gondolin player shoes, I'd be sweating a little bit. This is not an easy matchup at all. Looks like the Feanor player is ready to go. Okay, I think we're just waiting on Gondolin now. Oopsie daisy. We'll get back up in that tower in just a minute. Interested to see what the Gondolin players got. All right. Let's take a look at some of the comps here. Some screening here from the House of the Swallow out front. 2 units of. They're a nice little tar pit unit, especially for range damage. They can take quite a lot of punishment, at least from the front. We've got some Guardsmen of the Harp here, and we've got an anchor unit of the House of the Wing. Take a look here. This is probably one of the coolest models we have in the mod for sure. In the back, we've got the Lords of the Golden Flower. 1 unit of Cav, probably for the best. Really gives them a little bit of utility, but they're not trying to play to Feanor's strengths. They're really doubling down on what's good for them. Lords of the Golden Flower, that is going to be a scary unit. This is looking like it's the bodyguard as well. So a very beefy general in there. These are 3 HP relentless units. They can really, really throw down in melee. I've also got some spears out here on the wings and some House of the Fountain. Very, very scary. These are absolute infantry blenders. So the infantry force that he's got here, House of the Golden Flower, he's got, I believe, 3 units of the House of the Hammer of Wrath as well. This is very, very scary for the Feanor infantry lineup, who rely quite a lot on their armor values, and they don't have a ton of melee defense, so a lot of this damage is going to go straight onto that armor value, and even their formidable armor is not enough to weather the kind of DPS storm that's coming their way. We've got some of the I can't remember. You know what? I really can't remember what this unit is. This is one of their elite house units as well. House of the Pillar of Snow, I believe. Second unit here out on the wings to try and anchor things. We got a couple units here of the Scouts of the Tree out front as well. So I think that's gonna be it for the Gondolindrum. I'm gonna start my timer here, and I can let the players know when it's time to move forward. Taking a look at Catragon's army. Looks like we've got some mounted company, because of course we would. It's basically a no-brainer. Like, it's a must-have in almost any Feanor army. We've got some of their Lancers here, the Hunters of Kelegorm. Very, very scary, fear-causing. Probably the best heavy Lancer unit in the game, bar none. And of course we've got the Bodyguard unit here as well. The name I honestly can't remember off the top of my head. They are extremely formidable, though. They've got maces and melee. You can give them an armor upgrade, boosting them up to about 13 armor. So this is a pretty scary force to be sort of rounding the bend here and trying to possibly get in behind the Gondolindrum. And there are rules that push them forward. That would be a decent strategy. Get that cav in behind, ferry them forward. That being said, the Gondolindrum definitely have the spears to ward that off. Out in front here, we've got a few shield-walled units. 1, 2, 3 units from the House of Beor. And we've got some of the Rangers of Helleborn here as well. These are Hunter Javelins, so less ammunition, less range, slower in-flight speed, but they hit like an absolute train, and they have armor piercing about 10 or so damage on these units here. Looks like we've actually got 4 units of the Spearmen out front, and Feanor is opting to kind of split up their army here. This is a very formidable blob of heavily armored Feanor infantry. We've got the Defenders of Aglon fully upgraded, and 1, 2, 3, 4 units of the Footmen of Amras, or Amras, or Amrod, one of those two. And we've also got the Oathsworn of Mydros here as well. So a very, very formidable blob of heavy infantry. That being said, oh no, we've got another set of cav out here as well. So it's a pretty intimidating thing for the Gondolindrum here to be facing down. They definitely got the tools to deal with a lot of these units if they can, pin them down and pull them into melee. But yeah, that's a lot of mobility, and there's only so many spear units out front here. Looks like we've got the House of the Swallow trying to poke at some of these units here. Definitely, there is the skirmish advantage is going to the Gondolindrum, but I wonder if perhaps their infantry force is a little bit thin on the ground. And not really able to cover all of the angles, which is a great thing for the House of Feanor. They've definitely got enough mobility there to exploit any gaps in that Gondolin armor, and they've got enough infantry to kind of follow up and make sure the job gets done. Like, this is a nicely well-rounded Feanor army. Gotta hand it to Catragon here. Let's see. We're coming up to that 3-minute mark here. Let's take a look and see where all that cavalry and stuff is here. Yeah, we're coming up to that 3-minute mark, so Finrod is going to have to start to move around here a little bit. That other unit of House of the Swallow infantry. Yeah, got a decent amount of skirmishers out here. If these guys can kind of keep it together, keep it well ordered, they might be able to, especially the Slingers. The Slingers have a low damage but armor piercing bullet, and they've got some pretty decent range on them as well. I think it's about 110 meters or so. So if they can get some shots into the rear of some of these units, they will definitely take them down. Let's see here. Feanor moving in response to some maneuvering from the Gondolin player. One possibility for sure is to just kind of, because he's so spread out here, and especially this arm of his army is fairly overextended, maybe try and just push them, get a little bit of attrition with the slingers. The arrows aren't really going to do too much against the heavy armor of these units, but the fact that they are a hybrid spear unit is quite nice for the Gondolin, so they can use them to screen these slingers here and really try to exact a little bit of a toll from Feanor. They just got to get close enough, but of course these units here are quite quick. Heavy cavalry isn't the fastest in our mod, but it is certainly enough to close the ground quickly over 110 meters. So let's see what's going on over here. Yeah, the Feanor player kind of tightening the noose around the Gondolindrum. I would definitely be feeling that pressure if I was in Finrod's position here. And it's worth noting that, like, nobody wants to make a mistake here. This is a single elimination tournament up until we get to the finals, which will be best of 3. So it's, you know, be quick or be dead, basically. And any slip-ups here against this kind of Feanor army can be extremely punishing. So I don't blame him for trying to take his time. Ooh, a little bit of skirmish here, and those units are going to turn around. A few of them are going to go down. Looks like a couple of models got taken out there. 3 of them. Every single one is going to be a loss dearly felt. House Feanor armies generally are a little bit thin on the ground in terms of models per unit. And the only real exceptions there are some of the cavalry, which have a decent amount of models in them, but their infantry definitely don't have numbers. So all of these losses are going to be quite keenly felt. A nice little bite there out of that unit. 3 models, nothing to sneeze at. The mounted company are extremely formidable, so. And it's worth noting as well, I mean, we do have that ace in the hole here. We do have at least 1 unit of cavalry. Cavalry is harder to come by in the mod. I know the Sons of Feanor are not exactly a great indicator of that. But cavalry is fairly hard to come by in the mod, but they can be extremely impactful, and it adds a lot of versatility and utility to your army. So, you know, 1 or 2 good charges into some of that Feanor infantry, and, like, especially the Footmen of Amaras, these units here, the Knights of the Golden Flower, can actually wreak a pretty terrible toll. And it's worth noting as well, the way this stats kind of work in Silmarillion, a lot of melee defense, which is great for blocking charge damage from the front. So sending out these guardsmen of the fountain here to support these guys, if they get a nasty countercharge into just about anything except for the Hunters of Kelegorm, then it's gonna be pretty ugly for the cavalry unit on the receiving end of that. A little bit more maneuvering here, kind of testing the player's micro. Got some of the Edine coming straight up the pipe here, making their way towards that Gondolin army. There's a lot of spearmen here to bog down his front line, and Finrod does not want to get himself stuck in a position where he has to, you know, fight a war on several different fronts. He wants to be able to really concentrate a lot of his strength into a small area, and obviously he wants to sort of limit the avenues of attack that the Feanor cavalry are going to have into his back line. So this is an interesting little maneuver here, trying to maybe force his hand, force him to respond to this. I think the most likely response would be a lot of the Guardsmen of the Fountain, and I don't think not Guardsmen of the Fountain, Guardsmen of the Harp and the House of the Wing, and I don't think that they're going to be enough to hack their way through that many spears, especially with the Rangers in support. And there's no skirmish units over here as well. This might be a decent opportunity to shave off some of the burst damage of these javelin units. Of course, in Medieval 2, even if a model dies, you don't lose its ammunition, but you can certainly limit the damage they can do in a short period of time if you manage to cap some of the models. So we'll see what ends up happening here. zoning out this formidable unit of General's Bodyguard. Very difficult to take down. These units here, the House of the Pillar, not Pillar, Tower of Snow. That's my bad. They both have the same lord, so it's basically the same house. But they have some extra bonuses against cavalry. Most spear units have an innate spear bonus, I believe about 8. These guys have 10, and they're extremely fast, so they're very, very good at threatening cavalry once they manage to get a hold of them. Chasing these guys away a little bit more, trying to get some more shots off with the slingers, if at all possible. Quite enjoyable to watch these kinds of matches against two people who are very active in the Medieval 2 multiplayer scene overall. Let's see if we can get a good look at what's going on up here. Yeah, you can see that Feanor cavalry has been now pushed back to the front of his army, which I think is a small sort of tactical victory in and of itself. Kind of pushing the Feanor units down onto one front. Of course, it's not going to last. That mobility of the cavalry is very, very strong. Finrod is looking a little bit strung out here, but it looks like, yeah, this is gonna be it here. Oh, yeah, those lances are going to get a nice piece, I think, of these guys here. Oh, we have some spearmen nearby. Hopefully Finrod sees it and is able to move them in. This is also a great tactic when you are facing out a cavalry charge. A great way to minimize the amount of damage that they can do is just keep running, because of the way that Medieval 2 AI is. And now those slingers are managing to exact a pretty terrible toll there, almost even in terms of the numbers of models lost, and they will lose a few more here trying to get out. And now he's kind of positioned himself in a nice place here. It's worth noting that this mud terrain as well is going to slow any units down that go through it, including his own, so he's about to step into there. But this is a great place to try and defend himself around, at least from that cavalry right now. Beautiful, beautiful enfilade there. They're going to go hard at those slingers, though, and this is definitely one of those chinks in the armor. He's going to have some time, because they are going to have to pass through the mud here. It will slow them down a little bit, but he is also going to have to pass through that mud. So it's about even here. So if he maybe has some spearmen or something, he can move forward. Oh, yeah, he definitely does. It's a little bit of a race against time here, though. Oh, and he is going to get clipped by those Tower of Snow spearmen. He's going to want to get out of there. So this was a nice little win here for Gondolin, playing the terrain, using his missile units well, screening well. Very, very well done. But of course now this unit of spears here is a little bit overextended in the face of a very, very aggressive Feanor advance, and I do not think they're going to be able to last very long. I think he's going to have to commit here. It looks like maybe he's not, though. This wouldn't be the worst time to try and do it. Oh yes, I was going to say, I was hoping these guys would be maybe preying upon some of these Rangers of Helleborn here. Really nice move from the Gondolin player. This is going to be huge. I don't think Feanor sees it. I don't see any cavalry moving in response. Beautiful. Really nicely done here. Yeah, that's going to absolutely eviscerate that unit. Might even rout them off. Great value here off of those Knights of the Golden Flower. I'm sure he's going to respond to it eventually here. No, it looks like that was a big old gap in the army there, and that is why you want to have at least one unit of cavalry. Just look at the amount of value that he got off there. Traded a few of the Knights in CQB, but really did a number on that unit. I probably would have turned them around and gone right back. There's really not been any response from Feanor so far. I think if he had turned around and gone back, he might have been able to wipe out that whole unit. So we'll see if that ends up being a problem for him a little bit later. This was a little bit of a disordered advance here. The tactic was solid. Pulling them across that little mud area, trying to get a little bit more out of the skirmish units that he did bring. Nice mixture here of spears and the heavily armored infantry. The hammerer is moving forward, and they're going to reap a bloody, bloody toll. A little bit wasted against some of the spear units here. There are definitely some better targets, I think, over here. Guardsmen of the Harp, they're okay, but they are not going to trade well with the Footmen of Amaras. Got a big old gap here in the line as well. Some guardsmen moving forward, some of the spear units being tied down. Lords of the Golden Flower are going to have a great time in there. Uh-oh. This is trouble on the horizon here. This would have been a devastating charge here. I might have gone for that if I was Catragon, but they're actually going to get a beautiful charge here and probably not take too much damage, I would think, from these guardsmen. But they do have a lot of melee defense charging into them from the front. Probably not the best. This would have been a better charge since they weren't paying attention and were facing the other direction. I think if he doesn't get out of there soon, he might be in some trouble. Let's see how that Feanor cavalry is doing. So far, Finrod has done an exemplary job at kind of phasing them out. Oh, looks like the Knights of the Golden Flower here, not long for this world, surrounded by some of the Lancers and some of the mounted company in there as well. Yeah, not a good time. Looks like they went after one of these Javelin units here. These Javelin units have taken a decent amount of damage, but they're going to be able to toss into these Armorers, and it is going to hurt. The Armorers rely very heavily on their shield and their armor values, and the projectile from that unit is going to cut right through that, and yeah, you can see quite a lot of models there began to fall. But all in all, I think Gondolin is looking pretty strong here. This is a big, intimidating blob, of course, of a lot of Feanor infantry, but they do have the chops to kind of cut through them. That being said, some of the armorers are bogged down in some fights here that just really aren't going to do them any favors, really. Oh, nice. Lords of the Golden Flower squaring off with the Oathsworn of Mithros. Looks like the Guardsmen of the Harp there have been cleared off. House of the Wing and the Spearmen here are still able to hold and anchor the line, but that Feanor cavalry is just relentless. Coming here, oh, this would be devastating for Finrod. This could be like game over here. If he loses this unit, or loses a significant amount from this unit at the same time, those Knights are going to reap a devastating toll. And look at the difference. Oh, it's so painful. Finrod saw it at the last minute and did kind of countercharge, but it's not going to be enough. That's a really, really painful loss. These Knights here, though, bogged down, getting just shot in the rear by the second group of Slingers. Extremely nicely done here. Yeah, they are going to get that charge off and disrupt his back line, which is a bit of a pain in the ass. Finrod definitely wants to turn these units around if he can. I'm not sure I would necessarily commit these guys here. Oh, another unit of Lancers. Yeah, definitely want to pull the two-handed swordsman out, try and wrap around here. A lot of that cavalry is otherwise engaged, or they're moving off, and there's an opportunity here to definitely cut these guys down and then go for that full surround. Oh, is he going to see it in time? He is. Let's see if this is going to be the end of that Feanor Lancer unit now. Though, no, I think they're going to get away mostly unscathed. They will lose, 5 or 6 models here. In the center, though, things are not looking good for Gondolin. Unfortunately, he's just not able to bring his full strength to bear where he needs it, and his center has basically just been cut in two. Reinforcements have come in now in the form of the Rangers of Hellevorn. Oh, another devastating charge here into the back of the House of the Wing. The Spearmen are going to see it. And the House of the Wing have a lot of melee defense, so they might be okay here. Ooh. Another few Lancers going down, but yeah, it does take away focus from this big old blob here, and I think House of Feanor is going to take this. I think at this point they've reached the tipping point, and there's basically nothing that they can do. Unless they could kill that enemy general, but I don't think they're going to have the opportunity to do that. Little charge here might be enough to kill off what remains of these units. I think these Slingers are turning around and getting ready for another devastating volley. So he is managing to deal with these 2 units of heavy cavalry in his back. Are they going for it? No, they're going to get shut down here. This is going to be ugly. They've managed to penetrate all the way through here. His center is in tatters, and there's really no way back at this point. Over here, the Gondolindrum still going pretty strong, but I think that this is GG. Gotta say, Finrod did really well. I'm not sure that Gondolin was maybe the right pick for this. I might have gone a bit of a different direction. I mean, it's a decent guess with the the House of the Wrath, like they can do a serious amount of work against a lot of Feanor infantry, but I think maybe something with a little bit more mobility might have been needed. Obviously, Valinor got banned, and that was definitely something that I think Catragon wanted, because Valinor can contest the field with Feanor when it comes to cavalry a lot better than a lot of other factions are able to. So that would have definitely been a problem for him. And they had pole arms and some other nasty things that would have been able to kind of shut this infantry advance down, while Valinor bullied them with their own cav. Ooh. Oh no, I hope he sees it. That was nice redirection. That's devastating right there. What are we doing over here? Lords of the Golden Flower doing their best. I think these guys are definitely running. Yeah, they've been scattered. The House of the Tower of Snow, though, they are not going to go down easy. They will sit here and fight for basically ever, and they've got the House of the Wing in there with them as well, which is going to prove to be a little bit of an issue here as we move into the final stage of this game. Oh, yeah, there they go. So we got some routing there. I think it's all over but the crying at this point. Very nicely played from Finrod, but yeah, I'm not sure Gondolin was really up to this. There's just... Catragon has a great build here. Obviously, he's got a fantastic anvil to the hammer of his cavalry. There's just a lot of heavily armored infantry, a lot of spears that you can stick into shield wall and make them very difficult to get rid of. Yeah, this is a really, really solid build. And I think, having seen this, some of his opponents are definitely going to look at this and be like, yeah, maybe I'm going to ban Feanor. And it's worth noting that a lot of the ARM guys as well, very, very experienced medieval 2 players. So they are going to lean into builds like this. Builds that are, cavalry heavy and very traditionally medieval 2. Oof, yeah, that was a devastating countercharge there. That's how rough it can be, but I think these guys are maybe starting to rout. Yeah, this is GG here. This Elven infantry, as formidable and brave as they are, start to crack here into the advance of the Elder House of the Noldor, and Feanor is definitely going to take this. We have the GG there. Charge there into the spearmen. Probably won't go super well for those cavalry, but yeah, it's game over. It's all over but the crying. Pretty ugly. In the center there, yeah, as soon as I saw where those hammers ended up being committed, I think that it would have been a better idea to commit the House of the Wing and the Guardsmen of the Harp into the center here where those spearmen were, and just kind of let them wet noodle fight forever, and then use the hammerers over here where a lot of the scary infantry was placed. You can see the difference, right? So there were like basically no hammerers over here, and there's a ton of armored infantry left, whereas over here it was a lot closer, and there's a lot more dead Feanor footmen on the ground. So I think that would have maybe been a better way to make this closer, but it's all hindsight, right? He only had a few minutes or a few moments really to kind of think it out, because Feanor was on top of him. Very, very aggressive, very nicely played, and you can tell that this was kind of planned by Catragon from start to finish. So yeah, quite impressed with that. Very nicely done. Hiya, Georgie. Campaign is going pretty decently. We are trying to get a running start on it, but yeah, it's going all right. It's going all right. Yeah, it looks like the stream is a little bit laggy, but I think that's just because I am lagging in game as well, so that's kind of part of it. There we go. That's going to be an admit defeat there. So very nicely done. I'll admit defeat as well. I'll run myself off the board. There we go. Very, very nicely played by both sides. I gotta say, Finrod's strategy was pretty solid. Like the maneuvering, pulling Feanor over that little muddy patch. He did a great job at zoning out a lot of that cav. He really, really punished one of those heavy lancers earlier on in the match. But I think it really came down to picking the right engagements for the right units, and it seemed like a lot of the Hammerers of Wrath, which his hopes are basically pinned on, were really not doing super well. They didn't get some of the best engagements I think they could have gotten. I think if the House of the Wing and the Harp had been committed into the center where a lot of the spearmen were and backed up with the Lords of the Golden Flower to give them that extra edge, I think he could have put a lot more pressure on the Feanor center and maybe avoided that little breakthrough, and then moved those armor-piercing infantry to the wings where most of the heavily armored troops were, instead of body blocking them with a unit of Guardsmen of the Harp. Things might have played out a little bit differently, but it's really hard to say. It's a tough matchup against a really good player. Yeah, it's really hard to say where that could go. 1v1, Silm, RP, Finn, V, Cat, R1. Alrighty. Now we're just going to take a short break here while we get ready for the next match. Again, good game to both of the players. Hope you guys have enjoyed the first game of the first round. I've got another 3 games lined up. We're going to try and get through all of it today, with the exception of maybe the finals. Finals might even go until Saturday. But yeah, I will see you guys in just a few minutes. We're going to take a short break, and then we'll resume when we're ready. All right, see you guys in a few.
Take up the sword, string your bow, look to your arms and armor. Now comes the hour when we test Roman courage!
There we go. Just a little bit of a sound test here. Let me know if I'm too quiet for you guys. I can always adjust things on the fly. But this round here, we've got Buzzard versus Batu. Buzzard and Batu, both experienced Medieval 2 players. Again, Buzzard I don't think has been playing the mod as much, and I don't think I've seen Batu in the last little while either. This is going to be an interesting matchup for sure. Let's take a look at some of the rosters here for Doriath, and we'll talk about why it's going to be an interesting fight. So Doriath here has a lot of really nice axe units, in particular the axe guard of Region. You can upgrade them for almost nothing. At least you can upgrade their attack for like 5 gold, and then you have extra money to spend on their armor upgrades. And you can bring a unit of basically light infantry up to about heavy infantry, while still maintaining a lot of the benefits of being light infantry. So the higher skill and the higher movement speed, and some of the bonuses and stuff like that they get in certain types of terrain. So that's really nice. This is definitely one of their staple units. That's what I wanted for sure. They've also got some other more standard heavy infantry here. The shield bearers are really, really nice, especially in shield wall. They can last for a very, very long time and punch surprisingly above their weight class, given their low offensive stats. So definitely a reliable workhorse unit. Swordsmen are more of a niche pick for when you're dealing with things that you need a lot of melee defense to sort of circumvent. The axemen, for example, can quite easily be shot to bits. They do have a lower shield value, and they've got that lower base armor value as well, whereas you can get these guys up to a pretty formidable 11 armor, and then when you give them that attack upgrade, it brings them up to 12 attack. So they are very, very nice, a nice little well-rounded unit, but the axemen and the spears are obviously a little bit more specialized. But both of these are going to be extremely valuable for dealing with some of the nastiness that can come their way with Fingolfin. Fingolfin's got a lot of options in terms of how they can build an army. They're very, very well rounded. So the Axe Guard are going to be quite useful for that, for dealing with some of the chaff and the mid-tier units that you can throw their way, whereas the Swordsmen and the Spearmen and things like that are nice to pair against some of their more higher-end Noldor units. So there's a pretty decent dynamic going on there as well. Axemen of the Girdle can be extremely valuable when dealing with a lot of the Fingolfin pikemen. Fingolfin can really go hard on the Edain pikemen, I think they're sentries or whatever of Hithlum, something like that. And while they don't do a lot of damage, they obviously have great range, really solid numbers. They take penalties in the wood, so that's something as well that won't really come into play on this map, but could be important to dynamics later on in the tournament if we see this sort of matchup again. There's a lot of chaff grinding potential here with Doriath, and a lot of mid-range missiles as well, which can be kind of difficult for some of those more workhorse units, the staples like the sentries of Hithlum, to deal with. A little bit limited in the ranged department, but then so is Fingolfin. They've got some hybrid archers, but so does Doriath. They've got a dedicated high-tier archer, but Doriath also sort of has those. Some interesting units that may come into play here is the Marksman of Region. Now, 2 missile damage is not a ton, but these units can be extremely, extremely disruptive for other ranged units because of the high mass projectiles that they have. You can sick, a unit of Marksman onto another unit of, say, Javelins, for example, or another unit of archers or whatever, and they will just toss them around like ragdolls and prevent half that unit from firing, basically crippling their ranged DPS. You can also stick 2 of them onto 1 or 2 units that are advancing on a wing, and it will really, really disrupt your enemy's ability to move forward, which of course gives you other opportunities to exploit that with Doriath and some of the nasty mobility units they have. Warriors of Region are here as well, going to be nice for dealing with some of the more heavily armored units that Fingolfin can throw their way. They don't have as much armor as Feanor, and they do have to upgrade a lot of their units to get to that point, but nonetheless, Warriors of Region can be extremely, extremely formidable. They've also got decent cavalry. Fingolfin, one of the things they don't have is melee cavalry, so their lancers can get shut down very easily by mounted company. Outriders of the Girdle are a nice little ambush unit that can just be thrown at some of the Fingolfin units, and be on top of them before they have a chance to react to it. Some of the hybrid axemen, before they can get those axes out and charge, would be easy prey for the Outriders. A little bit more of a niche pick in this matchup, though. And then, of course, there's the two formidable bodyguard units here, Kuthalim and the Donathan Mablong, each armor-piercing in their own way. And then there's, the Spear Host, which are a nice little workhorse unit. And they have poison javelins, which can affect the morale of the Edine units, which, when used at the right time, can really turn things around. Oh, looks like Buzz will be coming back here. He should have had his 15k, but it's just Medieval 2 being weird. Let's see if I can get Buzzer back in here. Lobby is bugged. Alright, we're just going to have a quick rehost here. Fun little fact, if you do have troubles with your lobbies crashing and things like that, make sure that you leave multiplayer entirely, go back to the main menu, then come back and rehost. And let's see, we're going to be playing Dordinen today. Here we are. Nice little morning game. There we go. Go. Perfect. Let's make sure that they have their 15k this time. Again, if you guys are experiencing that bug where you change the money and it doesn't do anything, just hit enter a few times. Click around back and forth. They should be good to go. Should we bring these guys instead? But yeah, let's move on here and let's take a look at the Fingolfin army and some of the nasty things that they have. One of the cool things about Fingolfin is that I think that of the factions that have a prominent sub-faction within their roster, Fingolfin is, I think, the only faction, or one of the only factions, that can field an army made up entirely out of their sub-faction and still have it be viable. In this case, I don't know if that's the best idea, because the Edine don't have the fatigue traits of the elves, so once they start to get tired, then their morale starts to really plummet, and they can be easily scattered. And Doria definitely has the ability to kind of drag out the engagement a little bit. So I think elven units are going to be necessary here to meet that elven power. But they have a lot of spears. Of course, they have the Sentries of Hithlum, which are very nasty. They've also got the Herdsmen of Hithlum, who don't have the most formidable defensive stats, but they have a nasty, nasty charge. They are armor piercing, and you can bring them in some fairly scary numbers. I think you can bring up to 4 of them before they get prohibitively expensive, which is very nasty indeed. Do cost a little bit more to upgrade. Most of the elven units, you've probably noticed, are equipped with swords. Swords for Fingolfin are able to be upgraded a little bit cheaper. So these guys can get a little bit expensive. Yeah, see, they jump there a good 40 gold. But yeah, they've got numbers. They've got a decent enough missile attack, and only 5 limited ammo. But if you're bringing them in great numbers, then it's more than enough. Oh, you guys can only see the starting soon slide? Oh, that's my bad. Sorry about that. Thanks for letting me know. Waffles there just saved your life. Oh, that's so embarrassing. I'm so sorry. It's early for me. In my defense, I've been up since like 6 o'clock. In any case, here you go. Here, guys. Yeah, so looking at these Edine units here, quite nice. Most of them are very mid-tier, though. Obviously, middling. They do have some Dragon Guard here as well, although they do suffer from that same weakness in that they don't have the elven fatigue traits. So all the elves have like the best fatigue. You can see that very good stamina. These guys are only good stamina. So that is definitely an Achilles heel of bringing in all Edine builds, but the Dragon Guard of Dorlomin are just, they are so good and they look so freaking cool. They also have some throwing axes that are a little bit different from other throwing axes. They've got increased range, like very, very high range. but they do lose out on some raw damage. So a little bit better for use against lightly armored targets. That being said, they do still have the disruptive capacity of throwing axes. They have that extra point of mass, so they can knock over a lot of man-sized units, as most of them are going to be about one or so mass. And if you're able to double the mass with an attack on a unit, then it'll send them flying. Not necessarily kill them, but it will send them flying. So against a lot of like basic non-monstrous or non-phalanx units, you know, that's gonna make a really big difference indeed. And they've also got the Marines of Vinyamar. Like, you can support an Elven unit with like some decent close range, or a full Edine build with some decent close range Elven quality. The Marines of Vinyamar are a nice little facet of that. You can go full Macedonian if you want to. Think of them as the Peltists. But yeah, overall, Fingolfin's got some really nasty things here, especially the Lancers of Anon and Galuth. That can be a big problem for Doriath pretty quickly. That being said, they do have a lot of cheaper spear units, and they do have melee cavalry, so there's lots of options there. If Doriath is on their toes and the micro is good, then they can zone out the Lancers of Anon and Galuth. That being said, the big worry here for Doriath, I think, is going to be massed Sentries of Hithlum. A whole bunch of them defended by, you know, Bladesmen of Barad Ithel, who are like fully upgraded. Costs a little bit, but yeah, fully defended by Bladesmen of Barad Ithel, it ends up being really scary. Or even worse, Blade Masters of Barad Ithel. Like, you can throw them in there. Obviously, you're not going to have as much missile defense, so that's a bit of a trade-off. But in terms of like raw defensive power or offensive power, it's a really scary combination to have to face down. But it looks like both the players are ready, so I will shut my trap and we will move on and get this match started. There you are, guys. Just wait for Buzzard to load himself in, and we should be good to go. All right. Start deployment, get myself out of the way here. Both players, I checked this map out beforehand, both players should be just fine. Yeah, they're gonna have a lot of open terrain. They've also got some more like hilly and choke pointy areas over in here. But yeah, it's a little bit more choke pointy over here. There are some options for moving through these streets. To be honest, I think that's going to suit Fëanor, or not Fëanor, Fingolfin a little bit better than it will Doriath. Doriath kind of being out here, being able to flank, get around those pike walls and surround them, smash them to pieces with their superior infantry. I think that's going to be the play here. That being said, you know, they will be able to move through all of these areas here and do basically whatever they want. I guess it's possible that Fingolfin, if they brought artillery, they could kind of set them up here, but they'd be quite a ways back from the front line. I don't know if they'd be able to reach all the way. A little bit of forested terrain in the back, but I don't think there's any actual like forest tile on the ground, so it shouldn't matter too much for the purposes of cavalry and polearms and heavy infantry and so forth. Yeah, that's the map. That's Dordinen. Let's go ahead, pop ourselves up here to a nice little perch, and we'll wait for the players to ready up on their end. In the meanwhile, let's see if we have any questions or anything in chat that needs addressing. This will be an interesting one here. I wonder if... I don't think you can technically go inside of here. Maybe you can. Yeah, I don't think they can get inside here. And I don't think it would matter very much anyway, except for the purposes of a last stand. Doriath is able to put some units over in here. I wonder if this ends up being significant for them. And potentially they could come in and around. This is, you know, a possible avenue to get in behind some of the Fingolfin units, depending on how they end up deploying. I wonder if they can get in behind here. No, they cannot. But yeah, this area here, I'm going to be interested to see, you know, what both of the players end up making of it, if anything. Again, this really does suit the Fingolfin troops a little bit better, just because of how like close it is. They can funnel all of the Doriath units onto the front of their pike walls and things like that. But also does make them a little bit vulnerable. If they want to sit in here, Doriath can just, you know, opt not to go in and shoot the hell out of them. But yeah, out here, this is where the magic, I think, is going to end up happening. And out around here as well, because this is still fairly narrow and does favor Fingolfin a little bit. If Buzzard can get things, you know, into the clear in the back here, or can send a significant amount of cavalry, get them around here quick enough that Fingolfin isn't really able to press their advantage home while they're in transit and win the melee fight. That could be a big problem for Fingolfin as well. Like I said, their cavalry is pretty limited. They do have a legendary company with some armor-piercing arrows, but they're also very vulnerable. And in close quarters, they don't do well against horsemen, don't have a lot of armor, and they don't have a shield. So even some of the Doriath Lancers can be a big problem for that unit. Now let's pop ourselves up here. Get a nice little look. Alrighty. Got a catapult up front here from Doriath, trying to press the issue a little bit. Maybe punish some of those Fingolfin pikes. That could be really nasty. It's a decent shot there if you wanted to put it straight down that line. Looks like they've also got a catapult here as well. Let's take a look at the Fingolfin army. We'll go through it as quickly as we possibly can. Looks like a full unit of their lighter spears here. Yeah, very traditional Barrett, Ithel swordsmen and things like that, doubling up here with the sentries. Very, very scary. Oh, a nice one there. Decent hit. I would argue that going after the center here, where that bodyguard is at, is a better option, or it is definitely an option. If you can take a bite out of that Fingolfin bodyguard. The Fingolfin, this particular bodyguard is like a bodyguard of the High King himself, and they have a really substantial area of effect that buffs morale. So if they can take them down, or at least limit them, and limit that radius, then it'll make getting rid of these pikes all that much easier when it comes down to it. Alright, we're going to go ahead here and start the timer for both sides. They have about 3 or so minutes to kind of figure out what it is that they want to do. What else? 4 units here of the Buried Ithel heavy infantry. I'm betting that they're going to be quite substantially upgraded. 4 units here of the Blade Masters, a very scary Elven Corps. That is nasty. That is able to go toe-to-toe with a lot of what Doriath can potentially send their way. Got a couple units here of the Herdsmen. Just a couple of them from the looks of it. And a couple of spears here to defend the back line as well. Not a ton of anti-cavalry backline defense, I suppose, outside of the swordsmen here who've been doing an okay job at it, but not exactly ideal. But I think that's going to be the Fingolfin army, unless they've got something hiding out over here. Looks like they do not. Let's take a look at Buzzard's army as well. Ooh, another nasty volley here. Let's see if that's going to do anything. Oh, it just might. Oh, they all miss. Very sad. In the rain like this, it might not be the best idea to use that fiery ammo. It is going to make it a little bit less accurate. And you definitely don't want to blow your load and leave your enemy, who still has full catapult ammunition, to kind of dictate the terms of the fight. Let's see here. He's got some wardens with their poison arrows, can be very, very nice, and can reap a pretty terrible toll from those lighter add-on units. Got the catapult here, of course, with the axemen as the crew. Another unit there of his wardens. Got some spearmen who, with shield wall, throwing them into the front of the pikes, they'll sit there and they'll fight that out all day. I don't think they'll win because of the superior range of the pikes, but it will definitely tie them down and leave some other avenues of attack open. Got some of the axemen of the girdle here as well, potentially very, very good, and there's not a ton. Ooh. Another ineffectual volley here. Let's see if these guys manage to hit anything. He's very bunched up. This could be ugly. Ooh, a near miss. Oh, we got one more. Wonder where that's going to end up hitting. It's going to fly a bit wide and miss the mark entirely as well. It's the rain, man. The rain plus that fiery ammunition, it really does have an effect on your accuracy. Yeah, in any case, got some more of the spearmen here, the heavy spears of Region. So we've got some swordsmen here as well, more heavy spears, two-handed axemen, spearmen of the girdle. We do have some cavalry. I don't think I saw any cavalry from the Fingolfin player at all, so that's an advantage for him right there. Or potentially a disadvantage, since there's really nothing for them to counter, but could be useful potentially. We'll see. Yep, full strength unit of spears here with their poison jabs. Two-handed axemen. Oh, another unit of lancers here as well. Now this is potentially a big player. There are a decent amount of spears and some solid screening units on the other side, but again, you know, there's only a couple of the light, quick spears. We've got Kuthalim here as well. Very scary. They can push into a pike wall because they are relentless, so they can't be stunned or staggered or pushed back by the superior range. So they will get in there and chop their way through. That being said, obviously it's his general's bodyguard, and you know that can be a bit of a risk in and of itself. Oh man, that lag is substantial here. Wonder what's going on. I'll try not to move the camera as much. It seems to be a problem when the camera gets moved around. But yeah, some more two-handed axemen. I believe he had some flanking units out in this direction. We got some proper axe guard of Region here, who are a great chaff grinding unit. Not sure what they're doing out here, alone and unsupported. They're probably not alone and unsupported. There might be a unit of cavalry nearby. I think that's probably the plan in the event that the Fingolfin player had some lancers, but it looks like they've gone heavy into their infantry. Both sides still trading volleys here. Ooh. Oh man, so close. The thing with artillery is that you kind of want to shoot at things behind what you're actually trying to hit. Because of the way that artillery just seems to target things, it will always target like the dead center of a unit. But when you're less accurate with the rain and the fire, you know, you're going to end up overshooting your target and hitting whatever's behind it. So if you, or, you know, even falling short. We've seen a fair amount of these fall pretty short. So if you're targeting something in behind it, then it falls short and it just lands into the units in front, which is what you actually want to hit. So that's a fun little tip there for you. Let's see how this goes. We've got the Doriath player beginning to move forward. Oops. Some opening skirmish here. Looks like they're going after some of the Marines of Inumar. Didn't see the Marines of Inumar. Some harassment javelins. Worth noting in Silmarillion, we do have a couple of different javelins. There is a little bit of a dynamic at play there. Harassment javelins are great for longer ranges, don't have as much damage, but they do have more ammo, so they are better at kind of harassing, as you might expect, or dealing with lightly armored targets. And then we have the heavier javelins that are better suited for dealing with monsters and heavy infantry. Oh, hopefully he's able to get him out of there. I don't know. no. Yeah, see, loose formation and interrupting a firing animation can be a really, really big pain in the ass. It can make units sluggish to respond. So you definitely want to try and account for that when you are maneuvering in game. It looks like these guys are going to end up getting caught out as a result. They are trying to walk away instead of running. Definitely want to double click there. So I think that unit might get swept away, which kind of sucks for him. And is maybe going to force Buzz's hand a little bit. Oh no. They are going to get out of here. I don't think these guys have used any of their ammo, so this is probably not a good play. Yeah, losing a lot of that functionality from that unit here. It's definitely not the play, and Buzz is rapidly trying to fix that. He's got some jabbies and things like that moving forward, but a lot of these mid-range Doriath units have just not used any of their ammunition, so that's a big problem. And another unit here, the Axemen, are also getting very thoroughly stuck in, and definitely not by choice. This is a little bit, looking a little bit ugly for Buzzard. Looks like those AP arrows from the Kuthalim coming in, but a lot of these Fingolfin units, because of that mismanagement, they are going to be able to get in here, and especially these pikemen. That's going to be the big problem. They weren't able to be harassed on the approach, unfortunately, and I think, yeah, this is definitely not starting out well for Doriath. Looks like these guys took a big charge here. Don't want to really charge them down from the front. Probably want to get the cav out of there as quickly as possible. Respond to this with some of the other units here. The Axemen would be a great option to throw in here. And what do we got over here? Looks like the Axemen, the Axe Guard of Region, getting pretty heavily harassed by the by the herdsmen in the back lines there. So there's a lot of value being lost here. I don't think this is going to go Doriath's way based on sort of these opening moves. Yeah, those harassment jabs there are able to fire basically point blank into the cavalry. This cav needs to get swung around here and start being used for hammer and anvils and some of the other nasty stuff. What we got over here? Some spearmen who are kind of facing the wrong way. Maybe he can start to pull this back in the center, but it's really not looking good. It looks like they're beginning to break through. Just the mass and the weight of numbers and all of those pikemen. He needs to get his units into a position where he can, fire freely into them and really exploit that armor. Maybe even getting in behind some of the Noldor units as well and really making it sting for them by canceling out their shield values. There's a nice little charge there from the look of it, but it looks like he needs to get out of there real quick. Nice little rear charge here into the back of those Fingolfin units. That being said, these guys are heavily reduced. I don't think they're going to be too long for this world, and they're lacking support and very isolated. And they're now being shot in the rear. I think they might start to rout almost immediately here, and things are unraveling fast for Doriath. Yeah, this is really not looking good for them. I think this is going to be a bit of a blowout. What do we got over here? Reinforcements. Nice little rear charge. Oh, that will make the difference. Buzz is going to want to get out of there quick, though. Once those pikes turn around and start poking at his cavalry, it is going to be very ugly indeed, but a nice little charge there. He needs to get them out, though. Keep cycle charging, keep them moving, and that's really going to be what makes all the difference here. Looks like the big breakthrough is coming here, and Batu was just pouring on the pressure. A nice little unit here going to stabilize that, though, and the lack of mobility for Fingolfin, could still prove decisive here if Buzz is able to get some of these units around the wings and really exploit his missile superiority. Just something that Doriath gets to say they have very often, but I don't know. This is really not looking good. Yeah, nice. Got to turn around there. Probably wanted to bait that charge, and now I think this unit's going to just get skewered by that counter charge. Yeah, you want to bait that charge. We saw Feanor doing that really nicely in the last game. Catch-around was great at sort of, seeming like he's going one direction and then quickly misdirecting and then hitting another part of the line. That's a big part of the mind games when it comes to using cavalry in the mod, because of how devastating rear charges can be, because armor is pretty lacking and melee defense is a big stat. Over here, though, Doriath is holding on, but I don't think it's going to be for very long. There's a lot of numbers there, and it looks like it's only getting worse. Not sure what this cav is doing, trying to charge into the back of their own infantry. They definitely want to get around the rear here, and yeah, and try and get those rear charges. But Buzz is pouring more troops into the front, which will shore things up for the time being. And he is, making some progress over on this wing, so they're sort of trading wings a little bit. But pouring more troops into here, especially some of these axemen. I don't think I've actually seen his axemen be able to throw at all. Yeah, it's really just throwing good money after bad. It's just feeding more troops into the meat grinder, and I think that this is going to go the way of Fingolfin for sure. Yeah, the cavalry is a little bit too far out here. There's 2 in the back, though. It could be, if brought to bear here, maybe he could hit the backs of these units. That would allow him to swing around and sort of surround this blob in the center, at least while his center is able to hold. I don't know if it's going to be enough, though. Looks like the catapult crew out of ammunition, now charging into the fray. These guys finally being pulled out. Looks like this cav here is charging into the rear of these light spears. They can do pretty well. Melee cavalry, it's worth noting, in our mod, you can think of them in a lot of ways as both anti-cavalry, but also a mobile unit of infantry. They're kind of like dragoons, except they don't dismount. So they can go toe-to-toe, especially against lighter spears like this, but it's obviously not ideal. That is going to open things up a little bit here. Nice little rear charge. But they are on the move, and it's not really going to be enough. And now these little javelins here are going to be able to, I think, target them down. And this is going to be the end of that cavalry unit. So that's going to prove to be, I think, a fateful mistake. Yeah, here it comes. And now that cavalry is going to be just done. And the breakthrough has happened. Doriath has basically lost this. This is GG right here, I think. They were kind of holding on. They needed that center to hold if they were going to, pull off any sort of miracles at all. There are some lancers here that might be able to make this spread out unit of swordsmen here pay, but it doesn't look like. I'm thinking this is GG for sure. So another one of the ARM players who are going to be moving on here into the second round. It was a tough fight here for Buzzard. He ended up getting caught out early on. I think if he was able to use those mid-range missiles to full effect and just really hammer home those throwing axes and the javelins and everything else on that approach instead of kind of getting a lot of those units cut out, it really did throw him into chaos early on, inflict some losses that he really didn't need to take. But I think if he was able to prevent that from happening, this might have been a lot closer. It would have been down to Elven on Elven infantry if he could really thin out the Edine. Ooh, frontal charge here. Why not? Just go for it. Up and over. That guy is gone. Ripperoo. And this guy's just floating in midair like a dead Superman. But if he was able to thin out those Edine, I think that might have made this a little bit closer of a game. Doriath definitely has the ability to beat Fingolfin, but I don't think that this was necessarily the right way to play it. Yeah, some of those melee cavalry now managing to get in here against these Marines of Vinyamar. That would have been nicer early on in the game. Oh, looks like we are having a little bit of lag there. Oh yeah. And the Kuthalim now just being shredded. They were doing well against some of the herdsmen there, but this is game over. Game over for sure. He's basically surrounded everywhere. It's mostly dead Sindarin elves on that front line. Yeah, a frontal attack from those spears and all those pikes and things like that. It's hard to deal with, but Doriath definitely had the build. It's just unfortunate that a lot of those units ended up getting not used in the way they needed to be. Yeah, and there's the GG right there. Yeah, very nicely done, Batu, indeed.
The enemy general abandons his men.
It's nice to see the players being gracious here, and I think that's going to be the admit defeat. Yes, indeed it is. I will do the same. the map nice and quick, so so Batu can enjoy a well-deserved victory. Yeah, his that's a good point. Buzz's catapult placement was really good. Because of the arc on the catapults and that little hill in front of him, he can shoot right over, and anything that tries to come into him from the front, counterfire from another catapult battery, just hits the exact front of them because of the exact thing I mentioned earlier, where it'll often fall short of the unit that you're shooting at, so you want to try and shoot things behind it. Yeah, his catapult placement was very, very good. Let's go ahead here and save this. I don't know why I put RP, but we're just going to continue with that. Buzz the Batu. Go ahead and save that. All right. Now we're going to take a short break here while I prepare for the next round. This one should move pretty quickly, but I will take an extra few minutes because I have to update our bracket and get their picks and their bans for the next round as well, just so we can keep a smooth pace here. So yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and take a few minutes here, get everything set up for the next round, and I will see you guys in a few minutes. Alrighty, and we are back, moving into, looks like this is going to be a round 2 game, because we had a couple of players who had some things come up, so they unfortunately had to drop, and I'm still waiting on some of the other round 1 players to make their way into the Discord. So we're going to be moving on to a round 2 matchup between Batu and Waffles, both members of the same clan. I'm sure this is going to be, given the performance that we've seen from the ARM players so far, I'm sure this is going to be a pretty interesting matchup. This map is going to be a little bit different from the things we've seen before. A lot of like flatter maps, Nantathrend or Dinan. This is the Ashes of Hithlum, and there's a lot of terrain, a lot of, I wouldn't say a ton of forested area. It's not covered in trees, but there's also scrub, forest tile, all kinds of stuff that is going to really shake up the way that, that the players are going to be playing here. So let's see what our picks are from both players, see if I've gotten them both. It's one. Alright, I have picks from both of them. It's a lot of the things are different, maps, etc. But looks like Fingolfin versus Doriath is going to be the order of the day again. So we get to see that that dynamic play itself out, hopefully in a little bit more of an exciting way. But I suppose we'll see. This is a map that I think plays a little bit better to the strengths of Doriath and a little bit less to the spear walls that that Fingolfin likes to throw into the field. Let's make sure that they both have the right amount of money. Yeah, that should be good to go. Okay, it'll be interesting to see the way that this plays out. I've played on this map a few times myself, and there are some great opportunities for Doriath to get a lot of value off of those light lancers, the outriders of the girdle. Lots of places for them to hide, lots of places for them to just kind of pop out of nowhere. A lot of like broken kind of hilly terrain that will be a little bit harder for infantry to navigate, and they're going to move a little bit more slowly through it as well because there is a fair amount of scrub. Other things that are important, potentially, could be some of the longer grass tiles. We might see some more hidden units in there. I believe Fingolfin has the ability to hide certain units in long grass, and I'm not sure on Doriath. I don't think they have that ability. Let's see. I will be a different faction this time. We'll be the Golden and Glorious Valinor. Nah, we'll do this instead. This will allow us to more easily get out of the way in the event that, that the players kind of come through the areas that we're camping in. No, it probably won't matter. I doubt they're going to attack us, and we'll just have to be on our toes about it. Plus, the Adepts of Toolcast are a super cool unit. Can't wait to show them off to you. Alright, go ahead and start there, and once they're ready, we can kick this off. Let's see, about 3,000 or so far. That might... Now, in case they're watching, I don't want the... No, they can actually see that, never mind, it doesn't matter. So, looking at this, looking at that, that high number there, I'm guessing that one or both of these players are going a little bit more kind of numbers focused, maybe trying to go wider. We'll see how that works out. Both of them definitely have the ability to do that, and both of them can be effective while doing so. Obviously, Doriath with those poison jab units, their hybrid wardens and things like that add a lot of numbers and add a lot of missile utility. Whereas, as we've already seen, Fingolfin can go very numbers heavy, supplementing the lower numbers of the Noldor with those Edain, and yeah, it can be pretty hard to deal with unless you've got some solid and reliable means of clearing out chaff. So we got in total we got 4,000, so about 2,000-ish on each side. We'll see how they do. Go ahead and get it started. Armada Civil War. I mean, that's kind of how it's shaken out, isn't it? A lot of the Armada players have just really breezed through their round 1 games. Especially that last one. That was a brutal game for Buzz. It could have played out differently, and I would like to see, you know, how that dynamic plays itself out. So, yeah, maybe we'll kind of get to see that in this game. And obviously Finrod had a difficult run against that Feanor army. Very, very tough army against a really tough player. But I think he did really well. Just needed to pick those engagements a little bit better. So we'll see if someone can stop the ARM rampage. Perhaps the only people who can will be other ARM players, but we'll see. We do still have some really solid and experienced players yet to kind of dip their feet into the pool. I have Rex Gervais, who I believe won our last couple tournaments, question mark. I think that he did. Or at the very least placed very, very highly, as did his teammate Alexander. And they're going to be facing off against each other a little bit later. Yeah, Waffles is really good with Doriath. Oh, good. Gervais is here. Perfect. Yeah, it's not a flat field as Mr. Gervais has mentioned. And there is a lot of like forest terrain. And so for the pikes and things like that can be a problem because they do take penalties in the woods. It will slow them down, and a lot of the Doriath units are going to be getting bonuses. So it's sort of a stacking series of buffs and things like that. A nice little dusk battle here. Try and get myself. Can I stick myself up on a hill? Probably not, eh? That's all right. I'm not as out of the way as I could be. Yeah, we'll just hang out back here. Hang out on the shores of the lake here. Give you a little look at one of those premier Valinor units looking beautiful. Some of the work of Castellan of Angmar there. Yeah, let's do a little sweep over on the map here. Take a look at both of their deployment zones. This is looking at like Doriaths. You can see lots of terrain, lots of opportunities for hidden units. And along that front, he's got with Batu. What do we have? A little bit of broken terrain. He doesn't necessarily have to really deploy here in any sort of significant way either. And I probably wouldn't. Again, this is the sort of more narrow terrain that is going to favor that Fingolfin style of war, especially moving over onto the other side. Got a little bridge here and things like that you'd have to potentially assault. There are lots of ways around it, and he's got a nice little patch of some hidden terrain here. And some big old trees that are going to mask his units on the approach, unless both players are playing with banners. But there are lots of nice little choke pointy areas that Fingolfin can really use to be a pain. That being said, plenty of space for maneuvering over here after the gates open. Lots of ways to get around that. He's by no means obliged to attack Fingolfin where he is strongest. And they don't necessarily have to move forward, but they need to be like moving with purpose. So our rules aren't going to like funnel Waffles into a Fingolfin pike wall, as long as it seems like he's not just avoiding for the sake of trying to get away. And I don't think Waffles is going to do that. So, yeah. Let's go ahead and pop up to the top of one of these hills here. These beautiful little ruined hills. Get a nice little view of both sides and their front lines. Let's see. So Mr. Gervais is just hanging out with us for a few minutes here, but he will be back and playing in one of our games. As we finish off the round 1, he'll be playing against Leech. Oh, I thought he was playing against Alex. No, he's playing against Leech, and then whoever wins that particular fight will go on to face one of our other experienced players who have done very well in tournaments in the past. And that is going to be Alexander. Let's see. Yeah, this is actually a semi-final game. Believe it or not, this is going to determine who goes on to play against the finals because we do have some people drop out. All told, after this game, we'll have 5 more games to showcase. As we move into the finals, that's going to be a best of 3. And then we've got 2 other, a round 1, a round 2, and then a semi-game to play. Alrighty, it looks like Waffles is ready to go. Let's see what he's got. Got himself a nice little catapult here. I'm going to go ahead and start the timer for these guys. Looks like he's going to be bringing the tier in Lysdannen. The guards have fallen leaves or something like that. And they are quite nice with those arrows. Do a lot, not the arrows. The throwing axes. They have a shield breaker trait, which allows them to ignore shield value from the front, so they can be particularly deadly with that high missile of damage. An ugly early volley there coming in from a couple of those herdsmen, really just pouncing on Waffles right from the get-go. What else has he got here? He's got some of the Rangers. They're not super deadly, but they are annoying, and they do enough damage, and they are shielded that they can be a thorn in your side for an extended period. Looks like his center is going to be made up of the Spearmen of Region. In behind them, we've got some of the Girdle Spearmen as well with those poison jabbies. Looking like at least 3 units of spears of both types of units in the center, maybe 5. Over here, got that second unit of Rangers dropping down some stakes there as well. Final line here going to be made up of the Dordiath Triarii for all intents and purposes. A lot of Axguard of Region, and from the looks of them, they're not actually upgraded at all. So a lot of sort of cheaper chaff grinding units here. They might have 1 upgrade on them, but that is going to allow him to bring some other nasty units, including the Donathan Mablung nasty bite in close quarters, armor piercing, multiple HP, heavy armor. We got a bunch of axemen here as well, some warriors of Region. So it's a lot of AP. And then to round it all off, there's the Tyrion Lysdannen. Catapults, haven't seen much from them yet. One of them have already gone down. It's looking like, yeah, that's counter battery fire from the other catapult across the way there. Ooh, and another catapult goes down. That's not fun for him. It is going to eat up some of the ammunition, though. Catapults are quite limited in their ammunition in a field. Let's see if he's going to be able to get out of there and move quickly. That being said, if his catapult sucks up most of the ammunition from the enemy catapult, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's also not amazing. It does sort of limit the amount of money that or the amount of value you can get back from that investment. Moving on now to the Golfin side of things. Obviously, they have a catapult. Looks like a couple of Marksmen of Baird Eiffel here. They're one and only dedicated archer unit. They're not bad. I don't think they can actually upgrade their armor. I could be mistaken on that, though. but they have decent range. They're just a stock, standard Elven heavy archer. Good accuracy, good damage, not a ton of ammunition. And then we've got that classic combo here of Fingolfin pikes backed up with the Swordsman of Barret Eichel. We've got the bodyguard in the center there as well. A beautiful, beautiful, unique looking unit there for the High King. And that's going to be his main force here. I think it's more or less, I think it's the exact same army comp. So we can expect another unit of the Spearmen here. And then we've got 4 units of the Blade Masters kicking around. Which means probably not a lot of cavalry as well. Over here, another unit of those Blade Masters, and then 2 units of Herdsmen. Yeah, see, those shields, even, you know, point blank, a handful of volleys here, or a handful of casualties from that brutal volley. They're just here to kind of suck up a lot of that ammunition. Yeah, more or less the same Fingolfin army, though. I think the only novelty is the 2 marksmen of the third Eichel. Yeah, and they're taking it on the chin, but this is exactly what these units are for. Doriath was never really meant to be a ranged powerhouse, but these units here their sole and singular purpose is to be annoying and to take up enemy resources. And it looks like they're getting a little bit closer. I think they might try to just, yeah, they're going to make them turn around now, and the marksmen are going to pelt them. And despite the fact that they have a shield on their back, it doesn't really matter. And these guys are going to die in droves. Ooh, that catapult, though, getting overextended. I don't, maybe if he defends it well, he does have some of the axe guard, but they don't have, and they're not fully upgraded, so at best they're rolling with 7 armor and 6 shield. It's enough to hold out for a while and not let them get completely destroyed. Oh no, that's disastrous. That attempt at maneuvering this catapult into a good position is unfortunately not paid off well for him. It looks like he's just going to be aggressive and force them right on out. Doesn't want to be too aggressive though, because obviously there's a lot of missile units here that can punish them. We'll give these guys a chance to use up some of their artillery, and then we're going to have to force them to move here because this is starting to stagnate just a little bit. Well, catapult is officially destroyed, but for his troubles, he does still have, you know, a half-strength unit of his axemen. They're just getting brutalized here. See what ends up going on up here. Nice. You know, this is actually not the worst place for those archers to be. And now the rest of the Fingolfin army is starting to kind of move off a bit here, and these archers are back up where they can be a bit of a pain. Yeah, this isn't a bad time to maybe try and pick that CQB fight. Although, of course, if I was Doriath, I would be worried about running headlong into this. Might as well be a brick wall. Definitely need to find some way of getting in behind them and circumventing that. Oh, this unit of axemen, they're really not doing well here, but they will be able to take down some of these units. Yeah, those herdsmen are not going to do well in CQB against these axemen. Doriath starting to move forward here, bullying these archers out of position. A little bit of fire here, some light casualties. Ooh, nasty, nasty. Oh, missed for the most part, with the exception of these guys here. There's definitely an opportunity for bringing some of the spear host forward. And these are looking like the detachment spear host, or at least one unit of them. And the detachments work a little bit differently. They are the harassment javelins that I spoke about before, whereas the stock standard unit doesn't have the AP and they don't have the range. But obviously it does mean that they have a little bit less damage. So over here, what do we got? Unit of those marksmen. Now would be a great time to reveal that hidden lancer unit, because they would definitely do a number on these guys. But yeah, Doriath making some serious waves here. Fingolfin now moving forward, more willing to take that advance there. It looks like he's trying to get the charge bonus off, which is, you know, not a bad idea at all. But Waffles is supporting this unit very well, and you can see that chaff grinding potential. Like, there's a lot of herdsmen here arrayed against them, and they are slowly but surely dominating them and starting to make their way through here. Now with a little bit of support from those ranged units, that's going to precipitate these units into slowly falling apart. Let's see if we have any moves here on the other side. It's looking like no. Now all the action is going to be over on this side. Do I see cavalry? Oh, I do see cavalry. Oh my goodness. Coming in from the rear here. Some of the, looks like a couple units of outriders. Don't want to leave them in there for too long. This is cavalry that is not meant to sit and fight infantry. Like, you want to get them out and just keep cycle charging them, because that's where a lot of that damage is going to come from. That being said, it does at least distract them, so that might be worth it for Waffles for the time being. Oh yeah, those archers there really thin these guys out. These guys are just brutalizing them. Oh, but now the Fingolfin archer support paying them back in kind. Although I would say that this unit has basically paid for himself. These are expensive units, especially when upgraded a little bit. They end up being, I think for the 2 units that he's damaged, it's well over 1,400 gold. They managed to actually kill any of those bladesmen. Unfortunately, it's looking like no. And now that hand has been played. Yeah, you definitely want to be able to get in behind units like this. Sword units tend to have pretty good melee defense. A little bit of friendly fire there maybe, but yeah, it's going to be enough to break through. But yeah, sword units have higher melee defense, so if you can, you want to take them at some sort of disadvantage. Or just shoot them. Melee defense does nothing for missile damage. Let's see what we got going on in the center here. Well, looks like Doriath is going to pull back from that fight. Over here, these units are great to just kind of have in this fight and just tie these guys down, but they're not going to win this fight. Although, with the Axemen, this is really nice placement of the Axemen here. They're going to be able to go, you know, toe-to-toe with these bladesmen a lot better than a number of other units. So this is a possibility for a breakthrough, and they do circumvent that pike wall. So very nicely done here. This is just pure Noldor troops, whereas the spearmen are kind of exactly where they need to be. That's Donathan LeBlanc moving in here. If they can wedge themselves in here, that's going to be huge. Like, if he can get this Donathan LeBlanc into this into these units here, which I think he's going to do, or perhaps not. I'm not sure what happened to this unit here, but they must have been severely mauled by something. Ah, very nicely done. Now some Axemen here tying down the rest of these units, and now he's got a great opportunity. Come in from the rear here. A lot of the missile units from Fingolfin are just busy, or there's just not enough of them, or he managed to grind them down over here, which is huge. It's a bit of a weakness, though. If Fingolfin manages to get through here, he will be able to sort of break through this line. Very nicely done. Really well played here. Good use of the terrain, good use of those skirmish units. Fingolfin's kind of come forward here and just hoping that the enemy comes after them. And look at that. These units aren't all going to die, but that does definitely hurt. Yeah, some of them are going to get back up, but definitely not all of them. Like another volley as well on its way. Yep, this is just so painful for them. And there is actually an opportunity here. These throwing axes will destroy the catapult here. Oh, that cab's coming in. Nicely done here, sandwiching that unit Now Fingolfin's having to pull units away from the front. It's just a matter of, can the Doriatherim hold out here? There's a couple places they can break through, but in that center is where it's going to be decided. Let's just pour these pikes. These guys are actually getting ground down by those Doriath Axemen. There's an opportunity here. If Waffles can free these guys up, he's going to pull them out now. Might even be able to get a nice rear charge on the High King. If he does that, this Fingolfin army will basically just evaporate. Anything else that he's able to throw in there? No, it's looking like not. These pike units are getting committed. Spears are over here. If he's aggressive with his cav right now... Oh, no, there's another spear there. He's going to try and just lock himself inside. But there's more cavalry coming out this way. I don't think they're going to be able to go over that bridge, though. That's definitely something to be concerned about. Might be able to run these guys down, though. Ooh, nasty. Yeah, that's really bad. Tyrion Lystonin or whatever, they might need to start pressuring here. Yeah, if he can just shoot the Dawn... Oh, the Dawn-Ath. No! Oh, it's terrifying. It's such a rough place to be in. Now might be a good time to just shield wall push. Just get these heavy units into shield wall and push through these areas here where the Noldor are thinnest. That's probably what needs to be done in response to that. That's pretty brutal. Uh-oh. Where's that cav? What's that cav of his gonna do? That's the real question here. It looks like Doriath is starting to get pushed back here. Just a lot of Fingolfin reserves. Oh, they're gonna turn their side. It's gonna hurt. It might be enough to break on through. Yeah, one or two more charges and that'll be enough. He is in a good position to kind of break his way through here on the front lines. I think now is time for that shield wall push. Like these units here, if they can push through here, then this Fingolfin center is going to be in some serious trouble and definitely in danger of being overrun. He is starting to do it on this side, but the spear units kind of need to lead the way on that. How are the Tyrion Lystonin doing? They might not do terribly, actually. A lot of spear wall units don't do well fighting uphill. Now, my question is, where's some of that other cavalry? What are they currently engaged in doing? This is a great chance for that cav to kind of come in here and sweep a unit of these swordsmen from the field. I'm not sure I would try and break through there. No, there's a better opportunity over on this side. I think this is the play. Oof, yeah, that was really painful, charging into Grace Spears. It's not going to be fun for anybody. Yeah, see, this is the play for sure. No, they're going to see it, though. They're going to see it, and it's not really going to matter too much. Yeah, this high MD infantry, it's going to be difficult. But, how are things going in the center? Not bad. He is breaking in. Yeah, this is where it's going to win or lose. Again, if he just pushes with these spears, he'll get through so quickly. Oh, man. Ooh. Nice opportunity here to deal with these guys. Great charge there into those Blade Masters. That's just deadly. To thin them out real nice. Tyrion Lystonin are slowly making progress up here, and they're going to start to cut their way through those pikemen. And of course, in the center. Yeah, Doriath is still very strong.
Only half the enemy force remains.
Where's that cav? Might be hoping that they kind of forget about them. Unless they've all been killed off, but I don't think that they have. Ooh, There's a decent amount of those axemen there too. They still might come back. Still a unit of cav there. There's a possibility for a quick jaunt through here that would bring him in behind, but these guys are trying to chase them down, but these guys are faster too. I think that's just going to exhaust this unit of spears. If only he still had a unit of cav, man. If he could just get through here and like hit these units. Oh man, it's so tense. Okay, now we spread those reinforcements here a little bit. There's the other unit of cav. Now I see what's going on here. He should be able to break his way in. Yeah, these guys are starting to go down. This will be enough, I think, to sweep this unit.
Only half the enemy force remains.
Yeah, they're done. Yep, there's the other one. These reinforcements, that's gonna kind of put an end to that. But again, right here, if he could just break through, just like push through with those spears, he will be able to just surprise them, essentially. And just completely break through. Over here, he is starting to get beat back, though. I think this is starting to go the way of Fingolfin. But if he can just break through here, wrap around that center, it's going to open things up a little bit, allow him to maybe get some of that cav in there, and just be an absolute menace. Also might allow him to sweep away the High King's bodyguard as well. That drop in morale, a lot of these Edyne units are going to be getting tired. So if their morale suddenly just drops to nothing, then that's pretty significant. Looks like these axemen are back. Yep. Woohoo. And now these guys are going to be not very happy. The opportunity here, I think, has been missed. Yeah, these guys are done. That cav is doing their own thing. Just kind of sitting there. I don't know where the other one is gone. These guys definitely have paid for themselves. There's an opportunity here for... Nah, that would go right into the back of his own units. It's not going to matter. Just get some cav into the back here or something, or push with those spears. Like, that's the big thing here. That's one of the things that can really do away with this, like, Fingolfin pike wall, is just mass pushing into them, and then, you know, they can't keep you at range anymore. So that's definitely an opportunity for Waffles here. If he takes it, he can still, I think, come back from this, especially if he manages to sweep the Fingolfin bodyguard away. That could, I think that's the play here. That's like the only thing that can be done. Let's see, whereabouts. Doriath Axemen are just cleaning these guys up, and they'll be back into the fight eventually as well. Oh no! Oh! Devastating! Yeah, now is the time, man. You gotta do it. You got to... Yeah, okay, this is a good play. You gotta do it, though. Like, you gotta push. You gotta mass push your way through here. This is game over. It's just a war of attrition at this point. I don't think they've got enough left there, potentially. Yeah, opportunity. Big opportunity here. Hit the backs of those guys, but no, he's covering it up. He's covering it up. Oh no, this tiny little band came back. Oh wow, look at that guy, what a hero. He got skewered by the last one, but there's like 6 or 7 of them that he took down. Very nicely played. Man, he's thinning it out here, but Fingolfin's going to free up some of these reserves. And they're going to be able to block that. So now's the time. Like, push through. Push through with those spears. Mass push. Just use that shield wall. It's what it's there for. I'm not sure this is a good idea. Yeah, these units are going to reflect the charge back, so it's not really going to matter too much. Ooh, just a good charge, though. Took a bite out of him, for sure. You know, at this point, it might even be worth it to bring that cav back around and launch a charge in through here, but looks like maybe he's already done that. Oh, he is carving his way through. Now, where are those axemen? That's the real question here. There's a decent amount. I don't know if it's going to be enough to make all the difference, but it could definitely, you know, open up this little area here with all this relentless cav charging. Yeah, definitely wants to get them out of there, though. Preserve the numbers on these guys if you can. They might just be disobeying orders. It definitely does happen. Unit integrity when it gets entangled like that. There it is. There's the push. Yeah, they're thin enough, and it's really just the Edine at this point. Now, the Fingolfin High King's bodyguard is kind of isolated. This could be big if it pays off. Oh, God, I hope it pays off. Axemen now coming in. An alleyway has been opened here, and now Fingolfin's going to have to commit more of these sentries here. Certainly to the area where they are the strongest. These units have just routed on through. That's big. This is a chance here. If he can bring those axemen into these reforming units here, another avenue of attack has been kind of opened up. Oh man, just crazy. Yeah, you got to bring those axemen in. Bring them in quick. Catch these guys at a disadvantage, or move over this way and try and support them. Yep, this is a tough one. Nice charge there. Uphill. These guys are going to turn around, though, so it's not going to be too effective, and he's going to lose a lot of the unit there. This is a great opportunity to charge those guys from the rear. I might even just take my cav, commit them to this, and just throw them in and try and do as much shock damage as possible to these units. A rally here. Oh, this is a great opportunity, lining it up. I hope Waffles can make this work. Might be going for Fingolfin? Nope. Never mind, it was just an officer. I thought it was maybe one of those troops. This is a chance, though. Like even if he just gets them to turn around, it's going to help these axemen do their job a little bit better. So lining this up and going in for that rear charge against this unit here, this might be what he needs. At the same time, Fingolfin's starting to push on the other side. Such a tough matchup. And now Dordiath themselves are finding that they are surrounded. These aren't routing units. I hope they're not. Nope, they are maneuvering. This is it. This is the play here. Like, get in. Yes, there we go. Now they're going to have to turn around to face those cavalry. If you can get them out there and just do this even one more time, it's going to be enough, I think. A lot of those units going down pretty hard. This was a really tough grind. I'm surprised that nobody has picked Angband to try and deal with this sort of Fingolfin thing. Like Angband with a couple of mangonels. It's something that can definitely work. Still have any of that cavalry left? Yes, indeed we do. That cavalry going. Nicely done. It's just going to Oh, did he hit his own units that time?
Good tidings. The
Oh,
enemy
there
general
goes an enemy
lies dead.
general. Yeah, that's going to be it right there. Nicely played with the catapult. Really held that back to the end. If Waffles had been able to make some use of his catapult, he might have been able to punish this a little bit. Or at the very least, just having a ballista might have been useful as well. But losing your general like that, that's pretty rough. One thing I may need to do is be a little bit harsher on the Fingolfin players, or anybody really who's just kind of sitting back for as long as I let them do it, and not let them kind of sit there and skirmish as much. That was a tough one though. Definitely closer. This grind was really, really difficult. I think if that push had maybe come a little bit sooner, before Fingolfin had the opportunity to start to wrap around on the other wing, maybe it's really easy to criticize, but I think Waffles did really well in this. Played really nicely, and this was just a bloody slog. And you got to give it to Doriath. I mean, this is an uphill fight against them, fighting against all of these pikemen, but they did really, really well. Used their missiles well, used their cavalry well. This was just, yeah, this was really fun to watch. But unfortunately, Fingolfin's going to be moving on to the next round. Let me, oh, I have to admit defeat here as well, don't I? I'll let Batu enjoy a well-deserved win. But yeah, I mean, if Waffles was able to kind of contest with the catapults the way that Batu was, and just like use that nasty damage, he really held it back to the end there. You got to give it to him. That was really nice, just taking out the enemy general at the best possible moment. If Waffles was able to do something similar with his own catapult, you know, that might have swung things as well. Regardless, a really close game. It says 700, but honestly, there's like maybe 300 troops here left out of a very big army. RP off first. Oops. Alrighty. Now we're going to take a short break here because that was one of our semifinal matchups, so Batu will be moving on to face whoever ends up being in the finals. I need to see if some of the other contestants are currently available and able to get themselves into matches here. So hopefully it shouldn't be too much longer, but we are going to take a little bit of a break here. Thanks for bearing with me so far, and I will see you guys in just a few minutes. Alrighty, we're just getting that next match underway. I have one of the guys who's heading back from the dentist, so he shouldn't be too much longer. I've got my picks and bans from one of the other players. So, yeah, we are well on our way. In the meanwhile, if you guys have any questions or you just want to talk about the matches you've seen already, I know we had some people early on who had some map-related questions. I think now is an okay time for a little bit of digression. Or I can just let you go back to listening to the music, whatever you guys like. But yeah, it shouldn't be too much longer. The next guy should be the guy I'm waiting on. He's coming back from a medical thing. He's probably going to be another 10 or 15 minutes, I think, at this point. So yeah, in the meantime, if you guys have any questions or if you're just kind of hanging out, listen to the music, feel free to continue to do so. I'll turn it up. But if you guys want to ask me questions about campaign or whatever, I'm more than available to answer those for you as well. Alrighty. I'm gonna turn on the music a little bit there. Let me know if the audio is good for you guys. You can turn it up, you can turn it down, do whatever you need. I'm going to get the game hosted now. Let's see here. Let's do afternoon, why not? It's been a nice little afternoon in the Blood Basin. That is going to be our map for today. This one is a desert map. So there are certain factions that are going to be getting getting bonuses out here. Philothrim are one, Valinor is another, and Angband and Easterlings are 2 additional factions that get bonuses out there. Alrighty. Got our first player in here. Rex should hopefully not be too much longer. There he is. Perfect. So now I need faction picks from both of them. The factions banned for this round are going to be Fingolfin, Valinor, surprise, surprise, and Syrian and the Dwarves. So you won't be seeing the Dwarves or the Green Elves in this fight. Not sure why you'd want to play the Dwarves on either of those factions on this map. The Blood Basin is not exactly the greatest place for them to be fighting, since none of them really get bonuses there, etc., etc. Now let's get some faction picks. Alrighty, so catching up on our round 1 games. The winner of this is going to go on to face Alexander, who's one of our, I think he's a tournament champion or very, very near to it. So that'll be a really challenging fight for whoever moves on from here. I got 1 faction pick locked in. We're just waiting on Gervais's decision here. Alrighty. It's going to be Dordiath versus Mithrim today. That's going to be an interesting one. We'll take a look at the Mithrim roster here. We'll talk a little bit about the factions, since I don't think people are quite as familiar with them as they are with like the Hall of Famers. Finarfin, Feanor, Fingolfin, Angband, etc., etc. Mithrim has a lot of mid-tier units, and they also have some pretty decent skirmish as well. In particular here, the Eagle-Eyed of Androth. They don't exactly have a ton of ammunition, or as high a damage as some of the other factions' high-tier archers, but they do have some incredible range. 210 range, perfect for picking off other enemy skirmishers and just really bullying people. So they're very much a supremacy unit. Probably best used to pick off either light infantry, or if there's a danger of enemy archers, then they're a great unit to use for that as well. Got some decent armor values coming in at 7, so they can take a punch back in return. But they've also got the Bane of the Incomers, which is an interesting and finicky unit to use. It is essentially a mangonel arrow. That's what the crystal arrows do. They will split in mid-air, but it's different than the split shot arrows from House Finarfin. These ones are just going to spit a mass of smaller projectiles onto the ground below them. So if you're not careful, you can hit your own units, but if you're good with them and you understand where the range on the split is, then you can just be absolutely devastating with this particular unit. That being said, they also don't have a ton of ammunition to sort of balance out the amount of carnage they can cause. But yeah, it's a really nice unit overall. Very fragile though. Easily shut down and quite expensive to boot. And then they just have their sort of bog standard archer. They've also got a little bit of shield value, since Mithrim is all about that shield. High shield values, it does lower their melee defense as a result. But they also have a lot of mid-tier units that they can rely on as well. A lot of sentries of Mithrim. They do have some outlaws of Hithlum, which are like a detachment, essentially. They do have some throwing axes and two-handed spears, and they can basically hide almost anywhere. There's a lot of hide and long grass on, or a lot of long grass tile that they can make use of their hide ability on a lot of the maps we're playing, including this one. Actually, no, maybe this one doesn't have the long grass. I've also got Shore Riders of Mithrim, who are a lovely little melee cavalry / harassment javelin hybrid. They're basically a more lightly armored version of the Feanor cavalry, but they are a little bit cheaper, I believe, and their javelins, actually their javelins are about the same, but they're just tanky. You can bring up, I believe, about 3 of them, so you can bring them in some pretty substantial numbers. And then they've got their legendary company here as well, the Bannerets of the Hither Shore. Some knights on loan from Fingolfin. I don't think that they can be upgraded, but they do have some really nice charge damage, and they've got some solid melee skills, so they can hold their own in CQB. Probably the biggest thing here, though, is going to be the Human Guildsmen, for sure. Human Guildsmen have Maddox, which is a new weapon type that is unique to this faction. It gives them some pretty solid base damage, and they've also got armor piercing. It makes them a little bit faster, but I believe it takes away from their melee defense. As you can see, they've only got about 7 or so there, despite being a high tier unit. And I think it makes them more expensive overall, but I could be mistaken on that. That being said, you can't upgrade them. Make them even scarier than they already are. That upgrade is going to give them 2 armor and 3 attack. So they're sitting at 9 armor and like 15 attack, which is armor piercing. So very solid. Got some hunter javelins here as well. It is possible to afford a 3rd of them. I have seen that pop up a little bit, especially since it's a very mid-tier focused army. You will have a little bit of cash floating around. Yeah, that's the long and short of it. You got the Scions of Tuor here, who are relentless units, 2 HP, lock morale, but very lightly armored, as you can see, but with an exceptionally high shield value. Oh, and they can shield wall as well. There you go. Now those are the Twilight Hearth. Nice little hybrid unit. I don't think they can be upgraded. No, they cannot, but they have a solid shield value, really high skill. They're a hybrid spear, and they've got bows in addition to tunnel runners. Your standard throwaway AP shock infantry, very lightly armored, very easy to kill with arrows and so forth. But they do have some decent skill, and the Maddox that they have also give them that AP and that extra movement speed, so they're quite quick, and they can hide in a lot of places as well. That's pretty well it. Everything else is just your standard spear and sword units, and you've got your ballista and your catapult. So that's Mithrim in a nutshell. Against Doriath, though, Doriath has a lot of like mid-tier and like chaff grinding potential, and Rex plays them a lot. One of the things we might see is the marksman here of Region. They can be a really big pain in the ass, especially for units like the hunters here. These AP javelins, they can shut them down for a very, very long period of time, and depending on the angle, can also do a decent amount of damage to them, especially if they're shooting in from the flank or the rear. That two missile damage will be enough to thwart that 3 armor fairly reliably. Yeah, the Axe Guard, great opportunities to grind up chaff. Lots of spearmen here as well that he can use to sort of tie down their own spear units, hit their shield wall with his shield wall, prevent any sort of like disgusting mass push that's going to just hammer their way through the Doriath infantry, overwhelming them and just crushing them underfoot. And he's got all the other nice little tools here that we've seen with Doriath. A decent amount of bows, cavalry, very well rounded as befits the premier Sindar faction in the mod. So let's see what they do. I'm going to go ahead here, and what faction do I want to play? We're going to be extra evil today. We're going to play with the Bulldogs. Why not? Let's take a look here. This is going to be an even larger battle than the last time. Only about 50 or so of that is mine. Looking like we might even hit. Both of these factions, as we've seen, are capable of going really wide and bringing a solid amount of numbers mixed in with a little bit of quality in Doriath's case. So yeah, we could be seeing it hit that like 4.5k or possibly even 5,000 mark. Oh, it's just me. Alrighty, let's get this done. Good luck to both parties. This will be a really, really interesting matchup. I don't think either of these factions get any bonuses in the desert terrain.
Stay alert.
Pop myself down at the back here. Get into our little radio tower.
Go time.
You can see the bulldogs there. Maybe I'll move them forward so you can see them a bit better. Another beautiful unit there by Castellan of Angmar. Very frightening, and befitting of one of the fallen Maiar. All right, we'll do a little bit of a sweep here. As I mentioned, this is going to be a desert terrain, so if there were any units, they would be getting a solid attack buff of +2. Some of these little areas you can actually pass through these arches here, so this is terrain that you can sort of manipulate and use to your advantage. Both sides have, I think, starting outside of the ruins. Yeah, Leech is going to start with a little village here. You can go through a lot of these areas and like through the streets, or you can hole up in them if that's your thing. Although, of course, there is that pesky rule that forces people forward. After a few minutes, get my stopwatch out. Speaking of, little hill here in the center. The Sindar are going to start a little bit closer to it, but not by a huge amount. There's the possibility of a bit of jockeying for that bit of terrain. Otherwise, for Doriath, it's very, very wide open, and most of the really bigger set piece terrain is going to be over in this area. And so far, we haven't seen too many people try and shift their way through into the more terrain-focused areas. Usually, they've just been kind of sitting out here in the flatter areas and hanging around there. Though we do have this little wild card here, and that this hill could be important for skirmishers from both sides. I'd say it's probably more important for Mithrim, but Doriath might be able to use that to gain a slight advantage, enough to kind of keep Mithrim on their toes and not let their archers have it all their own way. Yeah, let me see if I can get up one of these towers here. There we go. Beautiful. Let's see here. Your money is on Rex Catragon? We'll see. We'll see. I have seen some pretty serious upsets in tournaments like this before, so who knows what'll happen. All right, looks like Leech is ready to go. Doriath is over here. They're starting right next to each other. Let's quickly jump down here and see what each side is bringing. Got some of the detachment spear host of the girdle. They're going to be harassment javelins, so they do have some armor piercing, greater range and ammunition. There's less of them, and of course they don't have high base damage. Got some of the wardens of the girdle here, and they're going to be backed up with some spearmen. Out front got the Tyrion, Lyce Danen. Also got a bunch of Axe Guard here, which is going to be very important. So we also got some Axemen of the Girdle. Great for grinding up that chaff. Exactly the sort of thing that we expected to see. Looks like the Bannerets here, perhaps. Ooh, taking a brutal broadside from the Silverthorn arrows. Lower armor values of Mithrim are going to enable those archers, even with their low base damage, to do a serious amount of damage if they're getting fired into the rear. And indeed they are. A whole bunch of that just going down. And Rex doesn't necessarily want a piece of that all by his lonesome with the one cavalry unit. He wants to use these 2 units of marksmen from the looks of things to try and support his troops. But these Grey Elves, once they turn around, get that shield bonus, they're going to be able to overwhelm just a singular unit of the mounted company. That's not going to go well for them. if they choose to engage all by their lonesome. Let's see what else here. Quickly go through the rest of the roster. Axe Guard, probably warriors. Yep, got some warriors there, some more spears, and some more warriors. Looks like Doriath is just taking it right to Mithrim. A lot of spearmen. Looks like they're looking to sort of block them. These guys are going to get a nice charge here. I'm not too sure what's going on with this center. It's not covered terribly well. Got some more spearmen rapidly trying to move their way into position. A couple of the swordsmen as well. A lot of that front line is just kind of struggling to keep up with the pace of that Doriath advance, and their center here is wide open, but it looks like they're going to have the opportunity to sort of fill in that gap. They're actually going to deny these axe units the charge, which is honestly not the worst thing. Limit the amount of damage that they can do there. It looks like these archers are going to be overwhelmed by a charge from these spearmen. This Doriath archer is going to drive them back in a hail of arrows. And these spearmen are now going to be locked in a forever war with those swordsmen. More troops moving up the center here. Scions of War heading straight for these axe guard. That is going to be what is necessary. And these swordsmen actually have a decent enough charge bonus. So they'll manage to get that off, and indeed they will. They're going to smash into those axe guard and potentially destroy them. A lot of those archers now beginning to focus fire. The Doriath units in the center. And they're trying to toss down into these gray elves here. Doesn't seem to be going terribly well for them. Throwing axes are a little bit finicky with their arc. Tyrion Lysdanen moving forward. It looks like Mithrim has managed to find a gap in the line here. Point blank volley from those axemen. Looks like it killed a couple of them. Are there any Doriath reserves? How's the cavalry fight in the back here going? It looks like it's going all the way of Doriath. That archer support is going to be enough here to drive back the Mithrim cavalry. They're just taking it on the chin from volley after volley from the Doriath defenders here. And there's going to be a oh man, hopefully he can get him out of there in time. There's still time. That window is rapidly closing. This is going to be so ugly. Yep, they're going to take that charge from the rear, and these axemen are just going to cut their way through. That's a big misstep here from Mithrim. Moving forward now, we can see some reserves here from Doriath. Some of these supporting archer units now heading back from the front lines. Looks like Mithrim is holding their own here, going toe-to-toe with one of the scariest factions in close quarters. What are these things? Oh, here we go. Some of those heavily armored units. That's going to be enough to stop this gap here, and I think Doriath is looking like they're in danger of being overwhelmed. A volley there from the axe throwers, drawing a lot of attention from this Doriath, or rather, Mithrim archers. Brutal Sindar on Sindar violence. Won't someone please think of the children? Another volley there. Hitting those guys hard. Definitely hitting some of the Scions of War as well. What do we got here? Did he hit that shot off? Well, it looks like a bit of a misfire. And these swordsmen here are being pretty rapidly overwhelmed. Over here, Doriath appears to be in the ascendancy. What is this? Oh, big commitment here from Doriath. Looks like another unit of cavalry taking a big bite out of some of those Wardens of the Girdle. Leech is definitely giving as good as he's getting, at least so far. But I think a lot of the backline Doriath units here have now been kind of freed up to do what they need to do. These troops here are going to do just fine weathering that storm, but they are a little bit unsupported. And now these hunters are going to get just run through by the cavalry. You can really see the effect of those Silverthorn arrows. These guys just out here in the open, easy prey for those arrows, just getting tossed around. It really messes with the AI and the unit cohesion, and they're just not able to do anything. So they're now easy prey for those horsemen, and that's really ugly for our poor Mithrim player here. There is a possibility of making him pay for it a little bit. Some of the archers now beginning to focus fire on those cavalry. Looks like one of the bodyguards are going to be backing them up as well. Front line, it's looking like in a fair few places it's going the way of Mithrim. Well, Mithrim is going to literally have to fight uphill here, so Rex is able to claim that hill. Over here, Mithrim is doing it. Tyrion Lystanen looking for a target, hunting around, probably going after these guys, so maybe those troops over there. And then over here, these wardens are getting just picked on by some of those Grey Elf archers. The Grey Elf archers are, they're pretty thin on the ground. A lot of them got sucked into melee and were quite quickly overwhelmed and rendered relatively combat ineffective. Here, though, as I was saying earlier, there's the possibility of a big Doriath breakthrough, and I don't think these Mithram elves are going to be able to hold on for too much longer. Oh, these poor guys just getting absolutely shredded. Imagine you get behind the lines, but at what cost? Just a trail of dead Sindar. Oh, just brutal. Yeah, this attempt at flanking here has not gone well at all. Looks like battered and bloody, but still looking pretty healthy. These Girdle Axe Throwers have managed to take down a unit of Mithram infantry sent forward, and now they're going to try and even things out in the center, where Mithram is definitely in a good spot. Looks like maybe the cavalry on this other side ended up being taken out. Very, very possible. And Mithram, I think, is going to be not too long for this world. Yeah, just a lot of Doriath infantry over here, unless they've got something hidden. Oh, more cavalry. They're going to cut right through the Tyrion Lystanen, and that is going to be an ugly, ugly charge. And a lot of that legendary company getting tied up in melee, run down by those cav. There's really nowhere for these mounted company to go. They're sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place. Go for another charge here if they can. No, I think they're actually just routing. That's going to be it for that. Looks like the lookouts here are going to be thrown into melee. A little bit of a desperation ploy, I think. Especially against this heavy Doriath infantry, there's really nothing there's really nothing that they can do about it. They'll be quite quickly overwhelmed. Though the bodyguard moving in to support is going to be pretty significant. These guys, I think, are likely to come back unless they get thinned out any further. Javelins here, what could they possibly prey upon? Maybe the marksman now being committed to CQB. Still a small unit of Doriath cavalry might be a decent thing for the javelins to try and get a piece of. Down here on the ground, looks like some of the Mithram archers have been forced into CQB. They do have looks like war picks or some species of Matic or something. Those cavalry are going to charge their way through those very thin lines. But I think these guys are also armor-piercing in melee. That's something I realized. The higher skill of these sword units, though, is going to see them through to victory, I think. Over here, still pretty close. Dead even, I would say. Over here, Mithram is doing well, but I think it's only a matter of time before this section of the line here in the center begins to crumble. They have managed to beat the Sindar over on this. I guess they're both Sindar, but you know what I mean. They've managed to beat Doriath over here, drive them back with those spearmen. But I think there's just too much here. They're gonna bog them down for a while. They still have supporting units here, like the Tyrion Lystanen. Is the possibility of another breakthrough over here, but it's spear on spear. That's gonna be a wet noodle fight that'll last forever. What remains of the Sindar on this side have been completely surrounded and overwhelmed, and now Rex is starting to bring out some of these very healthy looking units, and I think it's all over but the crying at this point for Mithram. Yeah, some more routing units here. Yeah, we just looked back here a moment ago and they were doing just fine, but now these guys appear to be routing off the field. Oh, some javelin support here. That might be enough to kind of even things out. It's a fairly close battle. Yeah, really making the Sindar from Doriath here pay for it. They're up on this hill, and it's nice for them in CQB, but does expose them to a little bit of backline fire here from Javies, like what these guys are laying down right now. Looks like some Doriath cavalry have gotten into the back lines, and that's going to be it for some of these archers. Maybe they're trying to flee, or maybe they're routing, I don't know. But definitely half of that remaining unit just got wiped out. I think they might just be fleeing towards the front lines. Tyrion Lysdanen out of ammunition, committing themselves to bloody melee. And there we go. It's all over but the crying here for these archers. Yeah, those guardsmen are going to cut their way through like nobody's business. The bodyguard is standing firm, but they're being rolled up by a big commitment of spearmen here. I think this is a GG for sure. Gotta say, Leech did not too bad. Not too bad at all. I would have maybe tried to milk that ranged advantage for just a little bit longer. Maybe have even brought those jabbies forward. He did, obviously there was a big mistake here with the center line just being completely exposed. But he managed to get in there before Doriath was able to do anything about it, so it's not, you know, it wasn't any worse for wear on that. And he did pretty decently against Doriath here in CQB. That being said, he did rush into melee. I would have definitely taken my time with that a little bit more. Obviously, we do have anti-camping rules, but we're not going to force people to take suicidal charges. So he's allowed to move backwards and get a little bit more skirmish in it, if at all possible. So that's probably what would have served him a bit better, because there's a lot of Doriaths to the left. Which is nice. You know, good for Doriath. We've seen them lose twice so far in the tournament. I feel like maybe people are getting the wrong idea about them. But definitely a very strong faction, especially in CQB. That's where they thrive. And it's basically GG here. Small pockets of Mithrin resistance still remain. I think one of the bigger issues for Leech as well is it looks like that unit of cavalry back here was basically killed to a man, and that was a miss micro that proved to be really, really costly, and then just relieved a lot of pressure on that back line. Doriath was able to throw everything together all at once and completely overwhelm Mithrin, and that's going to be GG's. Really, really strong showing right out the gate here for Rex, just brutalizing the poor Mithrin elves. Yeah, this is definitely, it's not a fun fight for Mithrin, but it is one that they can win. Just, I think a little bit more time needed to be taken for those ranged units. Try and thin out whatever he could. Yeah, it was a tough one. I would have probably brought a few other things as well, but definitely having the cavalry in his pocket, moving into the late game, like when the Bounty Company was looking to take that fight with the Mithrin elves, and there was like 2 or 3 of them in one area. I mean, overwhelming that cavalry quickly. Rex is being very aggressive. He's very confident with those units, but overwhelming them quickly with a quick javelin volley, get in there, charge, you know, finish them off. That would have left the entire backline open. It wouldn't have allowed Rex to commit nearly as much to overwhelming the front, which, you know, might have changed things up a little bit. But yeah, very, very tough game here. Very bloody as well. Look at that. Dead elves all over the field. Morgoth is pleased. Alright, got an element defeat there. My dudes are run away off the map. And Doriath's definitely in the ascendancy. Again, a really strong showing here. Seems to have a significant portion of their army still remaining. All things considered, they probably lost about half, or about 1,200 or so. So maybe a little bit over half. Let's go ahead and save that here. Oop. Remember to get the screenshot for once. And there you go. Alrighty, so we're going to take about a 5 or so minute break here while I get picks and bans from the other players, and then we're going to move on to our... Actually, I think one of our players had to drop because he's a doctor and he's stuck at a clinic dealing with some stuff, so you know what, fair enough. So we're going to be moving into another semi-final game, and I think I have the players for that, but in any case, we're going to take a short break here, reconvene in a few minutes. I will see you guys shortly. Alrighty. So it's looking like we have one guy who's held up at the clinic, and I think another guy is out with his family until a little bit later. I think Catragon is going to be away for about an hour and a half. So what I'm thinking is we'll do our final semi-final game and our finals, our best of 3 finals, tomorrow. Going to start around the same time, maybe even a little bit earlier. I think I was up at like 6 o'clock or something today getting this started, so maybe we'll shoot the start around 6. And we can get this done quickly for the European crowd and before anybody else has to go to work and so forth. Well, I guess, yeah, tomorrow will be Saturday. Probably don't have to worry too much about work. But in any case, I'm going to make people get up on Saturday just so they have to suffer the way I have suffered. And yeah, I will see you guys tomorrow. Hopefully you've enjoyed the tournament coverage so far. We've had at least one really solid, well-contested match. And then the other ones have been a little bit of a blowout, but I'm really looking forward to the best of 3 finals and to our next semi-final match as well. I'm sure we're gonna see some good performances. So yeah, I will see you guys. Let's see here. I will see you guys tomorrow on September 3rd, and we're gonna wrap this up. In any case, my name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for sticking with us so far. I know we had a little bit of a wait near the end there, and I will see you guys tomorrow.